Welcome to the SBI podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome SBI podcast listeners and video podcast viewers. My name is Greg Alexander and I am the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping you make your number. This is the weekly SBI podcast, and its purpose is to help you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they make theirs. Today's guest is Todd Wells, and he is the Senior Vice President of Product Development at Frontier Communications, an $11 billion telecommunications provider founded in 1935 with 17,000 employees. Todd has been with the company for 20 years, and as SVP of Product Development, he is responsible for product strategy, which at Frontier Communications means he leads the development of the product roadmap, launching new products, and managing the existing product portfolio as it moves along the product life cycle. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Glad to be here.
All right, okay, right now, our listeners, which are mostly sales and marketing leaders, are saying, why the heck did Greg have a product guy on this show? So let me spend a few minutes and explain. So the marketing team and the sales team cannot accomplish their objectives if the product leader is not doing his or her job. The product leader sets up the marketing and sales team for success. For example, the product leader must ensure the products that get released solve critical problems the customer is willing to pay to fix. Marketing leaders need to understand why the product team built what it built and how to position the points of differentiation. The sales leader knows products don't sell themselves. They need to be in demand, highly differentiated, and priced competitively. This is why Todd is on the show, to illustrate how absolutely mission critical it is for the product team to be in alignment with marketing and sales. Okay, we're going to use a section of SBI's revenue growth methodology to guide our conversation. Specifically, step 3, product strategy, which can be found on pages 73 to 108. If you want to follow along at home, download a copy of our methodology at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. Okay, Todd, you ready to jump into the questions?
I am ready.
All right, so let's start at kind of 30,000 feet. So my first question for you is, how do you determine which markets to compete in?
So for us, this is probably going to be a little bit unique than some of the people that may be listening to the podcast in that we've evolved from a voice company that operated within a certain franchise that was granted to us. And with that came certain rights and certain obligations. So to a certain extent, since that was our kind of our foundational network, if you will, in a lot of ways, the markets that we will compete in has been defined for us. We are obligated to compete there. We're obligated to at least provide voice services in those markets. What becomes very important for us is what portfolio do we want to do within those markets, and or do we ever want to edge out to those markets? So when we're looking at either the portfolio or should we tackle new markets, that becomes a very traditional business case approach. What is the cost to deploy a network? What's the cost going to be to support the products? What's competition doing? What's the opportunity cost if we don't do anything? And what kind of return can we get on the various investments? So probably from my team's perspective, we spend more time on what portfolio products we will provide within our existing markets. That's not to say we don't look at external markets or new markets, but our approach there is always going to be, can we get a better return on a dollar spent out of our franchise versus a dollar spent in our franchise? And to date, we've put more of our focus on expanding product portfolio.
Okay, so that makes all the sense in the world. So let's jump into that product portfolio, right? So if I think about the telecommunications industry, and I think about your heritage starting back in 1935, you're right. I mean, for the longest time, it was voice. Telecommunications today is many things in addition to voice. So when you think about constructing a product portfolio, given the fact that you've been granted a franchise and you have access to a certain set of customers, I mean, what type of process do you and your team go through to build the portfolio?
So, that evolution has been very interesting because it's back-end loaded, right? When you think about, our history since 1935, for all intents and purposes, we were a voice company from 1935 until the mid to late 1990s. And the evolution's really been in the last, 10 to 15 years where network technologies evolved to the point where data became a reality, video is becoming a reality. So when we look at the network that we have in place, that's been, in some cases have been there for a while, and that's been added to over the last, decade or so, we start to look at the capabilities of that network and what our customers are demanding. At the end of the day, we have to be very aware of what our customers want and need. And I think you said it earlier in the program, what problems are we trying to solve? And problem may be a little bit not the right term for some of our customer bases, but what kind of need are we trying to fulfill? What kind of problem are we solving? And how can we do that in a way that we think is appropriate for the customer, is going to win in the marketplace, and ultimately does fulfill their need or solve their problem. So we are in constant communication with a variety of stakeholders.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You were going to give me an example?
No, for example, equipment manufacturers are always looking at new products. They're putting a lot of money into evolution, and they're putting that money in with a lot of research and a lot of thought. And we'd be foolish not to leverage them. We leverage them. We look at what our peers are doing. We look at what our competition is doing. Most importantly, we're listening to our customers, in some cases directly, in some cases through our various sales channels. Yeah. What's selling? What are our customers trying to buy from us that we don't offer today? Mm-hmm.
Interesting. You said something there that was really fascinating. So basically from the mid-30s to the mid-90s, it was voice. So constructing a product portfolio wasn't super complicated because there was really one product, if you will, which is voice. And then if you think about all the innovation that's happened from the mid-90s to today, it's staggering, the amount of innovation. And if I understand what you just said correctly, what's driving this innovation is the equipment manufacturers, which is the capital equipment that you deploy in your network, has all this enabling technology, which allows you to bring new services to your customers, which raises a really interesting problem for you. Well, problem, again, is probably too strong of a word, which is you now have to peek out into the future and build a product roadmap. And in an environment where you're dealing with so much technical innovation, the risk is you could be 5, 10, 15 years ahead of what your customers actually want, need, and desire. But the enabling technology is there in your network, so you're probably excited to bring it to market. So how do you define the product roadmap in an environment that's somewhat chaotic like that?
Yeah, to a certain extent, it's an exciting issue because there is so much going on in the industry, and it all starts with the consumer, right? At the end of the day, it's not a if you build it, they will come approach from either us or from whether infrastructure providers or network providers. It's really responding to what customers are demanding, and how times have changed, and how usage patterns have changed, and what people want to do and when they want to do it. So there really is there's a reaction to that that shift in customer demand. From our perspective, we don't invent the network. We don't develop the network. We deploy the network. I think we try to do it in ways using our existing network that makes it better. But at the end of the day, one thing that we always try to do, whether it be a network platform or a product build or position, is make sure we maintain flexibility. So when we're looking at things, obviously react to what we know. Don't necessarily react to what we think, but always be aware of what we don't know. And we don't know tomorrow. So we build a measure of flexibility, and so as the market changes, we can change with it.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, really, Todd. This is fascinating to hear your perspective on this, given the industry that you compete in. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away, because when we come back, I'm going to ask Todd to discuss why marketing and sales should care about product profitability and its impact on pricing. So come back after the break.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI. My guest today is Todd Wells, the Senior Vice President of Product Development at Frontier Communications. Today, we are discussing how product strategy impacts a marketing and sales team's ability to make their numbers. And we are using SBI's revenue growth methodology to do it, specifically Step 3, Product Strategy, which you can find on pages 73 to 108 of our workbook titled How to Make Your Number in 2016. Before the break, Todd shared with us how market selection, the product portfolio, and the product roadmap impact the sales and marketing team's abilities to make their numbers. During this segment, we're going to hear from Todd why sales and marketing leaders need to care about product profitability and its impact on pricing. So Todd, I've never met a salesperson in my life who doesn't feel as if the product team has mispriced the product. They always say it's too expensive. So how do you determine product profitability, and how does that feed into your pricing strategy?
So, first of all, earlier you started this off by saying, "Why is a product guy on the call?" And I'm not your traditional product guy. I've actually done a number of different roles throughout my career, with finance being one of the early ones. So I bring a very deep love for driving profitability. And so and that's not unique to me, and that's something that our firm has always embraced. So at the end of the day, you've got to look at things from two directions. Number one is what is the market willing to bear, right? So as we look at customers and what their options are, everyone's got a price point for something, and they are going to look at what they can buy, what value attributes are in that product, and what they're willing to pay for it. And we're going to compare that to what our costs are to provide and support that service, and try to marry the two together. And that becomes a constant friction. Yep. We don't try to get overly analytical on our product profitability and try to do, allocate every cost under the sun. We really look at products, especially since we're leveraging an existing network. We look at what incremental cash in and cash out a product or a sale is going to provide, and we try to adjust our pricing with that in mind, as well as what a customer is willing to pay. And if there's conflict, in other words, if what a marketplace is willing to pay for a product we can't get to, at the end of the day, we can't be providing products where we're driving incremental cash flow.
Right.
We can look at an overall relationship to a customer, where they have other products and services, and that happens just about every day. But on an individual product basis, at the end of the day, it's got to be driving incremental cash flow.
Yep. So let me ask you something on that. So I understand that you understand what the customer is willing to pay for a given product or service, and then you work backwards from that to see if you can provide that at acceptable profit margins. That makes sense. And to me, the things that you look at there, because you don't want to over-engineer this and allocate every possible cost, the easy ones to consider is, what does it cost to build this product? What does it cost to install it and support it? And then I can kind of figure out, my profitability levels at that point. One thing that I see companies not taking into account enough is two other components on the cost side, which is what does it cost to market the product, to make people even aware that it exists? And what does it cost to sell the product? And we've done some work recently with some of our clients around this concept of CAC, which stands for Customer Acquisition Cost. So does the product team at Frontier think about the cost to market and the cost to sell when it's considering which products make it onto or get deleted from the product roadmap?
Yeah, absolutely. And being a company that has a variety of customer subsets, from residential through small business, medium business, right up through enterprise and carrier, the sales and marketing process and cycle is very different for each of those groups. And we also go to market with a number of different channels, and those channels do not have the same cost structure. So we pay very close attention to the cost per gross ad. We look very carefully at what the different channels will do, and what a sales cycle or marketing cycle is going to be for a product, because they are very different depending upon the product sophistication and complexity. And it's not one size fits all. A cost per gross ad of $5 for one product may make perfect sense, and another one may be $500, and that's okay based upon the product.
Yep.
So yes, we look at that very, very closely. We also want to make sure, as we're working with our sales team, that we equip them with the knowledge to sell against objections. So price is always an objection, but price has to be viewed through a value lens as well, and how well it's solving a problem. And that's, again, there's friction there, and there always will be. But that's something that, as we look at the market and what a product, how it should be positioned in the marketplace, we want to make sure people are selling the value of that product and why it's positioned the way it is, as much as they are just the price.
In listening to your answer, your prior experience in finance really comes out, and I want to make sure that I put an exclamation point on a point that you just made for the audience. You talked about matching the economic equation of a product to the sales channel. And some products that are expensive, might need to be sold through an expensive sales channel in order to capture the margin. Some products that maybe are lesser expensive or might even be considered inexpensive products, they need to be sold through a low-cost sales channel, or you can't make the necessary spread on the product. So for those that are listening and watching to this, when you're having a conversation with your product leader, make sure you have the conversation on matching the product to the channel and use financial data to make that decision. If I have a product that it's got $1 million price tag with 80% gross margins, as an extreme example, I can afford a highly sophisticated sales channel. If I have a product that has a $1,000 price tag, I really can't afford an expensive, highly sophisticated sales channel. I might do something like e-commerce. So this is really important to consider, and I think sometimes people lose sight of that. We call that, by the way, a feasibility analysis, and it considers the feasibility to build and market and sell and install and support a product. All right, let me move on to the next part here, which is, Todd, how do you determine what the market will pay for a product? I mean, you mentioned that you start with that and you work backwards from that. Sometimes when you bring new things out, I just think about telecommunications, and years ago we didn't use text messaging. So trying to figure out what somebody is willing to pay for that, it's a tough thing because there isn't really a precedent set. So that is your pricing strategy. You start with that and you work backwards. How do you figure that out?
Well, new products are unique, and in some cases we'll have new flavors on existing products, and we won't necessarily know how the market is going to perceive the value. In some ways, we can extrapolate a lot of knowledge from existing products that we may be revising or tweaking. In some cases, we may do focus groups, depending upon the product. We may ask customers, if you had this option, what would you pay? We look very, very closely at what our peers in the telecommunications world are doing. Are they offering similar products? If so, what kind of results are they getting? We look, obviously, very closely at what our competition is doing. In many cases, they can offer the same products and services that we do. And we structure our pricing in such a way that if we're not seeing the market react to the product and the price value equation, then we'll adjust.
Yeah.
But we try to be, I won't say patient's the right term, but you also don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction if there's not immediate results.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to see how the market. The buying cycle is very interesting, and it differs by product and by segment. And you just got to be aware of that and take all the inputs and decide when's the right time to make an adjustment versus see, see if a little bit more time will let the market adjust.
Yeah. Let me ask your opinion on this concept of good, better, and best pricing, and the art and science of bundling. Your industry, the telecommunications industry, I think invented the concept of bundling, at least in the B2B world, and have done an exceptional job of, quote, the bundle. I think there's a term for it, the triple play or something like that. I can't remember what the exact terminology is. I mean, what is your opinion on that strategy, good, better, best pricing and bundling? Does it work? Should companies that are not doing that embrace that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, we do utilize it. First, I'd say I'm not sure we invented the bundle as an industry. I think McDonald's might have when they invented the value meal years ago, because it's the same concept.
Do you want fries with that?
We do use good, better, best pricing. We may not necessarily call that within the marketplace. Sometimes we do, particularly when we're selling equipment. If we're selling modem choices or tablet choices or something like that. Where we're getting into our product differentiation, it may be by speed, et cetera. We wouldn't necessarily call it good, better, best, because we're really trying to set the product attributes up to what the use case will be for a customer. But the concept is in place. So we do utilize that. Bundling is widespread in our industry. We continue to use it. It's got benefits to the consumer. It's got benefits to us from a churn perspective. So we do continue to use it, but we don't use it exclusively. There are some customers who don't want a bundle; they want an individual product. So we're priced, to address those needs as well. But when we look at good, better, best, the one thing we do try to do is figure out where the market's going to be, and the market may differ based upon the product we're offering in a segment. So, in other words, for lack of a better term, the mass market may sit in better in a certain product. And we'll position our pricing so that that's where we think we can win. And we will index good and best off of that. In other products, good may be the mass market. But we want to make sure we find our sweet spot, but we also care for the other parts of the market as well.
Right. Excellent advice. Right now I can hear a stampede of marketing and sales leaders running into the product leader's office with all of these questions saying, hey, listen to this guy from Frontier Communications, how come we're not doing this stuff? I mean, this is really enlightening stuff. I love the concept of indexing off of the mass market and trying to pick the market. Do you index off of good? Do you index off of better? Do you index off of best? That's really insightful. Let me give the audience some advice. Take a look at your 2016 number and determine how much of it is tied to new products being launched this year. In my opinion, if it's more than 10% of your 2016 number, if you're dependent upon that, then successful launch of new products, you're going to want to come back after the break, because right after the break, we're going to tackle how not to mess up a new product launch. So if you're getting some value out of my conversation with Todd, stick around after the break. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. Each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for how they make their numbers. You are not going to want to miss this. Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI. And my guest today is Todd Wells, the Senior Vice President of Frontier Communications. Today, we are discussing how the product strategist can make or break the year for the sales and marketing team. We are using SBI's revenue growth methodology to do it, specifically Step 3, product strategy, pages 75 to 108, if you're following along at home. Before the break, Todd and I were discussing product profitability, development costs, and pricing. During this segment, we're going to hear from Todd how to work with sales and marketing to successfully launch new products. So Todd, how do you work with the marketing team to develop messaging that communicates the value of your product and why somebody should buy it over the competition?
So first thing from my perspective is I don't tell them what to do. So I'm not a marketer. I have members of my team who are very good at it, who have done it in their past, and they have input. But our marketing team has an expertise that I'm not going to profess to have. However, what I do have is an understanding of why we were launching a product, what need we were trying to fill or what problem we were trying to solve, and the thought process that went into that product launch. And that's the information that I share with marketing. So when I go through and say there may have been a particular problem we were trying to solve, or there may be a need a customer was expressing to us that we were trying to fill, that's the information that I'll provide to them, and we will always provide them use cases to make sure that that's easily understood. And we will work with them on what the positioning is going to be, or what story they may tell, or what advertising channels we think may work for the target audience. The other part that's extremely critical is involving the sales force and or our regional operations. They're closest to the customer. They're talking to customers every single day, and they become the voice of the customer to tell us what's going to resonate or what's going to not. So they have a very valuable role as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to get to the sales team in a minute, and I certainly definitely want to talk about that. But you said something there that I want to pick on a little, and that is you don't tell them what to do, which is great. I mean, it sounds like there's clear lines of demarcation as to who does what as in your organization between product and marketing as it relates to launch. But launch is really dependent on crisp value propositions, positioning, and storytelling. So it sounds like to me that you and your team are the internal subject matter experts. And then when the marketing team is building their campaigns for launch, they come to you and say things like, why did we bring this product out? Help me position it against the competition, et cetera. Did I capture correctly how you do it?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I'd say one thing is that, I kind of view us as an umbrella organization. So when we're launching a product could touch a number of different organizations, from engineering to IT to our operations group. We become the kind of overseer of the process and the conduit through which a lot of information flows. So you could argue that the product team is the one team that sees everything end to end.
Yeah.
So in that regard, we will either have a very strong knowledge of how we should position something, and or we can bring the right people into the conversation if there's any kind of ambiguity or uncertainty.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the reason why I have you on the show right now. To me, the product team, maybe unlike sales and marketing, yes, it's a silo, but it touches every part of the organization. So their impact on the organization is extensive. Let's talk about where you were going, which is how to get the sales team ready for the launch of new products. I want to talk about some tactical things. So if I'm a sales leader and I head into early part of 2016, that's when this show will air, and I know that, I don't know, let's say I have a $100 million quota, and 20 million of that is dependent upon a product that's getting released in, say, June. And if I don't successfully sell the new product, I'm going to miss my number and all the bad things that come with that. So, I mean, how closely do you work with sales, and how closely do you think you should work with sales? I mean, do you get tactical enough where you do things like build a target customer list, or discuss with sales what the launch strategy should be? So should we do a land and expand strategy, or should we replace some legacy product? Should we go after a competitor? Do you help the sales team think through budgets? I mean, how detailed do you get with that? Or do you take an approach with sales like you did in marketing, which is, I'm not going to tell them what to do, I'm going to give them the information they need and let them figure those things out?
It's probably a little bit more of a hybrid with sales than it would be with marketing. And with marketing, to a certain extent, their skill set is trying to get information that is going to create a reaction and hopefully a call to action with a customer. In sales, in a lot of ways, it's about knowledge, right? So hopefully the salespeople have relationships with the customers that they're going to be talking to, but they probably will not have the same product knowledge that my team would have. And sadly, some cases, they may not have complete knowledge of what's available.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that never happens, but unfortunately, sometimes it does. But it'll be a little bit more of a hybrid, because we'll certainly do a lot of information share. They'll do a lot of training, but we stand ready to go sit with customers whenever they need us. And if I need to go on a sales call to explain a product and why we do something or how we price it, or to make adjustments because of what the customer needs, I'll gladly do that, as will my team. So we'll be a little bit more involved there, and it actually solves dual purposes. So as we sit with customers, whether it be face-to-face or listening to calls in a contact center, we're gaining information on what customers are thinking about.
Yep.
And that helps us, that there's like there's a process circle there that helps us with the next product roadmap.
Yep. I got to tell you, you're one of the most sales-friendly product leaders I've ever talked to, and I know my audience really well. And right now, they're saying to themselves, "I wish Todd was on my team." So here's my advice to those that are listening and watching right now. I mean, go build the bridge with your product team. Get your product team on sales calls with you. They help you with the knowledge, as Todd just mentioned, and they also benefit from it because the more customer contact they can have, the more intelligent they're going to be as to what the wants and needs and desires of the customers are, which will get factored into the future roadmap. So it's great to hear how collaborative you are with your marketing and sales teams. Okay, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, Todd and I will discuss an action plan to put all this great advice to work. So stick around after the break.
Making your number is hard. Your problems are complex. Complex problems need complex solutions. Introducing the SBI magazine. Read in-depth stories written by award-winning journalists about how your peers have overcome their problems to make the numbers. When you need more than a tweet, social post, or blog article, turn to the SBI magazine. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com to subscribe.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, Todd, we're going to put a nice little bow on this. I would like you to speak directly to the audience. And here's my question for you. What are the 1 to 3 things our audience should do to get the product teams and sales and marketing teams into strategic alignment?
All right, so this one's a little bit tougher. So, as I think about our approach to product and aligning with sales and marketing, so I guess the first thing is don't accept the status quo. And status quo could be something as, what's my current revenue trajectory? And I see a lot of companies, particularly in my industry where competition has intensified in the last 10 years, seeing, movement, when you think about companies moving from a monopoly to a full retail world, obviously your revenue is impacted. Don't accept that status quo. Recognize that as a product and sales team, you can make a difference. You just got to find out the right products and the right positioning. So that's the first thing. Don't accept the status quo. Second, you have to be a strong partnership. There has to be constant communication in both directions of, we're positioning a product for a very particular reason. Here's why. And to your earlier point, sales won't always like that, particularly when it comes to price. And then sales has to have the funnel back to product to say, here's what's working, here's what's not, here's what you're missing, and here's what I need from you. And keep that communication going at all times. And at the end of the day, everyone has to keep the same thing in mind. Number one is you're trying to fill a customer need or solve a customer problem. And number two, you're trying to grow profitable revenue. And there are ways to marry the two. And that is always our goal.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. I mean, I love the don't accept the status quo. I think sometimes we just kind of get into a groove and we say, hey, that's what product does and this is what I do. This is the way it's been forever. And you don't have to accept that. I mean, there's new ways to do this. So great advice. All right, let me give you my 2 cents. So what does all this mean to you, the audience? I'm going to shoot you straight here. Sales and marketing teams cannot make their numbers if the product leader does not give them compelling products to market and sell. It's that basic. And the key to this is a well thought out product strategy. If the product leader gets this wrong, you are going to miss your number. You can't take weak products with substandard value propositions to the marketplace and expect to win. This is why you care. So if you want to make sure you get this right, get a copy of this year's research report titled How to Make Your Number in 2016, which you can get at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. After you read that, if you feel you might not have a great product strategy and you want one, You can have one of our experts lead you through a workshop, which will detail how to do this. Go to the same URL, salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016, but this time it's -workshop, and request one of our team members to come out and see you. Todd, on behalf of the audience, I want to thank you for letting me interview you. Our audience benefited greatly from your advice today, so really thanks for coming on the show.
You are very welcome.
I also want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in. This show has become very popular, and with this popularity comes great guests like the one we had today in Todd Wells. So thank you for tuning in, and I wish you much success as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.